Social justice, 1, 2, 3. I wanna be PC. It's just the way to be for me and you. Your hateful slurs are through.
I call woo-woo on you.
We'll fight until you're PC black and blue.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. We got a great show here for you today. We've got returning to the channel. We got Stephanie from My Nerdy Home. How you doing, Steph?
Hello, I'm doing really good. Thank you very much for having me again.
Well, I'm glad you could make it back. It's been a little bit of a while, and obviously with us all, as well as Aaron Sparrow, comic book writer, editor, and now one of the writers for Young Justice Season 4.
Nice.
Yeah. Although everybody thinks that, like, everybody that's congratulated me is like, good luck on the writing gig, and I'm like, oh, you don't understand how this works. I'm basically Ozymandias right now. I did it a year ago. I'm just allowed to talk about it now. It's already been done.
Yeah, apparently the animation process takes a little bit of time. So there's been interesting stuff. I covered kind of the rumor out there that the new 007, James Bond will not be 007 as far as the code name in No Time to Die. It's actually going to be this new female character. But director Cary Fukunaga cannot stop digging himself a hole with all this stuff. And he says that he is modernizing James Bond in No Time to Die for a post-MeToo reality. I got to be honest, My Nerdy Home, Steph. Who asked for a James Bond in a post-MeToo reality?
Oh, absolutely nobody. Nobody asked for a new and improved and feminized James Bond. This is in complete like you said, to the Me Too movement. I'm pretty sure that I read somewhere that the movie had been shot and then they did reshoots in order to, modernize him, make James Bond more inclusive. And that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. James Bond is like one of the most alpha males out there, and we can't have that anymore. They have to ruin another character.
It's so strange that I don't know. I guess they just call everything toxic masculinity nowadays anymore, Aaron. We're like, oh, we'll just call that toxic masculinity, and then everyone knows that's code word that you have to get rid of it. It doesn't matter. There's no debate on this stuff. They label it, and then it gets to be removed.
Yeah, it's actually masculinity that they're after. It's not even toxic masculinity. They just want to break it all down and feminize everything and make men weak and ineffectual. Because that's the way that they want us in society. And, largely you're seeing that happen. You can read the scientific reports of how testosterone is dropping in men, how, men are becoming, less and less effective. It's really kind of, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any means, but it just definitely seems that there's a large contingent pushing it that way. And it's really unfortunate. It's basically taking key nodes in infrastructure. So if you take these characters that we've had for decades that have been aspirational for men, and you break them down, you affect the culture, and you affect the way that society moves forward. And that's really what it's all about, is taking those keynotes and infrastructure and turning them against us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy with entertainment. You have like all these franchises, and they're well established and they're real big money makers. And then you see something like Rian Johnson coming in to direct a Star Wars film. And then it's quite apparent afterwards that he doesn't like Star Wars. Then why would you bring this person in, to the franchise if he doesn't fundamentally agree with or like the information or the stories that are being presented? And here we have Cary Fukunaga. Steph, he actually went out there and essentially said Sean Connery's version of James Bond 007 was a rapist.
It's interesting.
Why would you bring someone like that onto the franchise?
Yeah, it's interesting that he said he specifically said Sean Connery's James Bond. Did he say Sean Connery's James Bond or Sean Connery's version? Right. So he mentioned the actor. They've been trying to cancel Sean Connery for the longest time, and it just hasn't happened yet. So Sean Connery's is incredibly masculine. He doesn't really let things bother him. He just rolls it off. He's already kind of set in his ways. It's like, you're gonna cancel me? What for? I already have my way of thinking, and that's how I'm gonna continue to think. But they've been trying to cancel Sean Connery for the longest time, and let's now go after his Bond. in order to try and do that. Let's create this story around his James Bond that he raped a woman. And these people, if they think that that's rape, they have no idea what rape actually is, if that's their definition of rape, what he did in that scene.
Well, it's crazy with Sean Connery. Obviously, he passed away a couple of years ago, but they have no shame about this stuff. They'll go after writers that have been dead for 100 years. In this case, they'll go after an iconic role of a beloved actor and try to kind of bring down his legacy. And you mentioned
and these are the people that, like, even after he passed away, they celebrated it because they're like, yay, another misogynist gone.
Yeah, it's the most disgusting things, and then to try to paint that picture on the character, I think it's the weirdest thing, Aaron. I don't understand people in today's society who want to look at everything in the past through modern lenses. And I was in the military, and I remember I was going through these courses at the time. But I'm married, and they're like, these are the ways that you can interact with women, and basically it was, if you want to kiss her, you have to ask. Well, okay. And then if you want to do anything past that, you have to ask for permission for every next step, Aaron. And people want to look at James Bond from the 60s or 70s, and they expect that kind of culture to be existing at that time, even though it's only really come online in the last 5 to 10 years.
And I don't know how effective it is. The idea that I definitely believe that you should ask for consent, but there's also reading the room, and if things are going. I mean, look at what happened to Aziz Ansari. He got outed for Me Too, and the woman gave her account, and I know so many women that read that and was like, "Oh, honey, you didn't get assaulted. You were just on a bad date, and you didn't communicate. What you wanted, or what you didn't want." And I'm sorry, but when you go down on the guy twice in a date, he's probably going to feel like things are going pretty well. And he's going to think that you're into him. And that was in your account, that's what you did. So, of course, he thought that things were going well. At no point did you take the responsibility to say, this is as far as I'm willing to go. I understand, like you said, you felt pressured and things like that, but there is a certain amount of responsibility that comes back onto you to say what you're willing to, how far you're willing to go. Mm-hmm. And, when it comes to James Bond, especially in the fiction of the character, This man is a spy. This man's entire job is to seduce and to manipulate and to basically read the room. So if he knows if he gets aggressive with a woman, if he she starts to walk away and he grabs her and he spins her around and kisses her, he's already read that that's going to work, because he's not going to put himself into a position where it's going to destroy the mission. He already knows what she's going to respond to because he's already profiled her. That's his job. And so within the fiction of it, even if, Sean Connery's Bond was more aggressive, that's what was going on. It's just weird to try to go back and apply these standards of today to the fiction of yesterday. And it's probably why they should just keep James Bond in the 60s. I think that's where the character works best with the high-tech gadgets and things like that. Now it's gone a little Bourne Identity, and everything has to kind of be at that level. So, maybe it is just best to keep keep telling James Bond stories, but make him a relic of the past, because that's where the fiction seems to work best.
I'm sorry, Seven. You sound like you had a point you wanted to say.
Oh no, I just said exactly. I was agreeing.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this in the post Me Too reality? Is that what you want? It's like, okay, I'm going to kiss you. Do you consent? Now I want to give you a high five. Do you consent? And now we're going to lay down.
I think all of that is
expect that to be how it goes, right?
No, I really don't. The whole what Aaron was saying about reading the room, it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. If I don't want to be asked whether or not I'm consenting for a kiss. If I agree to go on a date with you, that's great. If it's going well, then we'll hold hands. And if I'm wanting a second date, then absolutely. You don't have to ask me for a good night kiss. I just think that that's kind of ridiculous.
You go in, and if she turns around and pecks you on the cheek, didn't go as well as you thought.
Exactly. even that. But I mean, if I hug you, if I give you a kiss, I'm kind of setting my own limits. And it's kind of like they post Me Too. I mean, they just like weren't setting limits. I don't know, or they don't know how to set limits. And I think it's because, a lot of people just honestly live their lives online, and they don't go out there and actually socially interact with people, meet people in places. It's all online. So of course they're going to be incredibly awkward on dates. And when if something's going farther than that, and I don't want it to go farther than that, then I'll stop it. I mean, and I'm not going to be like, oh my God, I felt like I was pressured into doing. No, you have free will. You have free will to stop or go all the way if you want to. So, I mean, this whole consent, it's just putting all of the blame and pressure on the man and not taking any for yourself. That's this whole thing. That's what this whole thing is all about. It's taking all the pressure off of you and putting it on the man, because they have to constantly ask for consent. And, if you go on a date and nobody offered or gave consent, then, I'm free of any fault. It was all his fault because he didn't ask me for consent. That's all this is.
Well, it also feels like are men are allowed to be portrayed or portray themselves in a confident manner? Obviously, that would be one of the key traits of Sean Connery's portrayal of James Bond was the ultra confident, ladies' man, as he was, infiltrating, different agencies and stuff around the world. Like, confidence is sexy no matter who has it, whether it's a woman has it, a man has it. Like, confidence is something that you want to see from people, but it's like, I don't understand the issue with a confident man going out there and approaching a woman, but obviously to Cary Fukunaga, the director for No Time to Die, he sees an issue with it. And you would imagine that the studio agrees with him, or they wouldn't have brought him in on a project like this.
Well, these are the things that you say when you're looking for future work in Hollywood. It plays well to to the higher ups, and it plays well to the magazine writers and the people who are going to do the articles, and on it they're all going to applaud you. The disconnect is that all of these things are not connecting with audiences anymore. The more that we change these things, it's just not what the audience wants, and that's why you're seeing so much indifference. Hollywood keeps asking, why do these reboots, why do these continuations and these franchises keep failing? And it must be because we're all out of touch. It's like the Principal Skinner meme. Have I grown so out of touch? No, it's the children that are wrong. Your audience is very vocal, telling you what they want and what they expect out of their entertainment. And as much as YouTube and YouTubers get vilified for complaining about movies or complaining about popular culture or the media that's being offered, mm-hmm. Instead of vilifying them, you should be listening, because they have their finger on the pulse of what fandom is asking for. And that's what you should be delivering. That is your first priority as someone who creates entertainment. It's not to lecture, it's not to educate, it's to entertain. If you can work some other things into there, you can have somebody walk away with a moral life lesson or something along those lines that you can subtly weave into the narrative. That's great. So much the better. So many shows have done that over the years. Even back when we were watching like Batman the Animated Series, Gargoyles, things like that. There were moral lessons in there. There were real life, slices of life that were worked into the narrative. But the main focus was entertaining the audience, and that's something that Hollywood's gotten away from. Now they just want to be on a soapbox lecturing us.
Exactly. Yeah, they've gotten away from storytelling coming first, and they've moved towards the identity politics coming first. What's the word I'm looking for?
Where do you see all this stuff going? Do you think the woke kind of movement within Hollywood, is it going away? You're not really allowed to have masculine male culture characters portrayed in traditionally masculine roles, like a James Bond. It feels like every new leading female character is borderline Mary Sue if she isn't a full up Mary Sue. You look at the Star Wars franchise. We saw we've seen it in other roles lately. It's getting very frustrating. You create a YouTube channel, you want to talk about these things and celebrate them, and then you're vilified for pointing out the obvious that everyone else is seeing.
Absolutely. But like with Hollywood, I think that it's not going to change anytime soon. Right now, they think that they are right, that they are correct. No longer, the story is not coming first anymore. It's whatever they're preaching is coming first, because what they don't see is that, like, we want something out of movies. We want story to come first. We want characterization to come first. We want characters and story to push the plot forward, not identity politics, and that's all we're getting. I don't see it changing anytime soon, because Hollywood is giving us what they think that we should be wanting.
Which is
right?
absolutely hilarious, because it's coming from Hollywood, who has more problems.
Oh my gosh. The hypocrisy
is
hilarious, and they don't see that hypocrisy because they live in a bubble.
They've all got the guilty conscience. They're going to lecture us about Me Too when it's what's the line from the Bible? Jesus says you can't remove a splinter from your brother's eye when you've got a plank in yours, and that's what they're trying to do. Is they're the ones who have all of the child trafficking. They're the ones that have all of the misogynistic rape culture going on. With Harvey Weinstein and all of these executives and things like that. And everybody knew. Seth MacFarlane was coming out and trying to tell people on the awards show. He came out fairly fearlessly and tore into Harvey Weinstein long before anybody else was talking about it. So it was known. It was known.
Yeah.
There was a certain level that he could get away with because it was jokes where he wouldn't be, financially liable or sued or, but because, he obviously knew of it, but didn't have hard evidence that could be presented. And it's really tough when you're in that position, when you know something that's happened, but the person that it happened to isn't you. So therefore you can't come, it's not your story to come forward and tell because you're going to put them in a vulnerable position. That's a really hard position to be in. And, it's like, I know of some things that I've been told secondhand of people that should probably be exposed. But, if the person who experienced it isn't willing to come forward, there's not a lot that, that you can do. But, it's Hollywood that has all these problems. And they're gonna sit there and they're gonna lecture us about what we should think. Get the hell out of here! You have no right, none whatsoever. And that's why everybody responds so well when Ricky Gervais gets up there on an awards show and just tears them a new asshole. Pointing out all their hypocrisy. You don't know anything about the real world. You don't know anything about people's actual lives. Just come up here, get your award, and then fuck off.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't see it getting better anytime soon, but it does suck, because I don't want everybody to be portrayed the exact same, but you want to see a man with confidence. You want to see a woman with confidence. You want to see him.
And unfortunately, if you want to see all of that, you have to look to the past. Go back to the old media, because all the new media that's coming out, unfortunately, they're tearing down all of those old characters that were really, really good in order to build up their newer one, the one that they want you to root for, that you just don't want to root for because they have no faults, they have no qualms, they have no weaknesses, they're overpowered. They're, what is there to root for in this character? Absolutely nothing. I know that you're going to be fine. I know that you're going to be safe. You have plot armor for days. Why on earth do I need to root for you?
Yeah, you're not going to make a mistake. You're not going to learn any lesson because you are perfectly formed right from the beginning. And you look at when they do get it right, like say a movie like Into the Spider-Verse. I never cared about Miles Morales in the comic books. He was just, I didn't dislike him, but he was just very bland and just kind of seemed like a carbon copy of Peter Parker to me, with a couple of new powers. I wasn't terribly interested. And then they did the Into the Spider-Verse movie, and Miles had flaws. He had, he had fears. He actually made a mistake. His uncle got killed, so he had that element of tragedy. They really built him up into a real character. And it didn't matter that I don't know what it's like to be a black teenager. I identified with Miles Morales, and now I love that character from Into the Spider-Verse. I bought his action figure, and I bought the Miles Morales game, even though it's not exactly the same character, for the PS5, and played through that and had fun with it because they fleshed him out and they made him real to me. And his identity doesn't matter. I never loved Peter Parker because he was a white kid, and I was like, oh, and I'm a white guy, so therefore I feel represented. He had problems, and he had, he was struggling to pay rent, and he had family obligations, and he had all this pressure on him in addition to being Spider-Man. And the Spider-Man part was the escape, where he got to go out and he got to be the really cool guy who has all the right quips and puts down these villains and, takes them out and has these adventures. But then he still has to go home to his life, which is just his regular personal life, which is beating him down. And that was something that was universally kind of understood, and that's why that character has stood the test of time. It has nothing to do with him being a straight white male. It could have been any character, just like I identify with Miles Morales now, and I like that character because there's something in him that is human and that reflects our own humanity. And that's what these characters should represent, is our shared humanity.
Right.
What's crazy when we see these things and people are absolutely rejecting the changes that Hollywood is trying to impose on characters and what a hero can and can't be and what they can represent. What they're going to do, and we're seeing it now, they're going to go to the past, they're going to make up reasons, and they're going to try and wipe it out. Like, we can't stream that. That's no longer viewable. That's no longer that's obscene material. They're going to try and wipe out everything that you can turn to now, or they're going to try and change it. They'll alter it, what you're seeing, to fit more of the modern standards, so you won't have a choice. So you can't go to the past and find escape from all these things happening. And I'm sure you've seen that yourself, Steph. Whether they're just if they can't compete with what's in the past that people actually like, so they just make it go away.
Oh yeah, and that's why physical media is so important. Like, you have your physical stuff, continue to watch that, because streaming services are taking out certain episodes of television shows that they don't think are important. But I mean, we see that everywhere, and we see that with statues. They're tearing it down. They don't want you to look to the past. They want to rewrite the past. They want to tell you that was let's it's like it happened yesterday. It's like, oh, this happened yesterday, the statue was built yesterday, but we need to tear it down today. All of this stuff is historical in order to learn from the past and not repeat the past's mistakes. To me, that's why the statues are there. It's to remind us of our mistakes, or remind us of what this person did and why we need to continue and push forward and not to make the same mistakes. Or in the case of some statues, let's live according to that person's values or something like that. But instead, they just want to erase everything like it never even happened and move forward with whatever they deem is correct, should be correct, the way you should be thinking. And that's just ridiculous. And that's exactly what's happening with James Bond. That's what's happening with James Bond. This isn't a man that you should be idolizing. Instead, we're going to give you a new character that you should be idolizing, that you should be putting first before this man, because he represents everything that's bad. He's masculine. He's masculine. He's what do you call it? He has a good job. He's white. He's
confident.
He's confident. He's in shape. He can fight. No, none of that. That's all considered toxic nowadays. So we're going to give you a character that you need to be rooting for. This is who you really should be rooting for, not this toxic white masculine man, which is just incredibly sad.
And the idea that we have to look up to every bit of Bond is another stupid. This idea that your characters have to be perfectly moral and perfectly just in every respect, they have to be perfect, because that's not the way that people are. That's not the way any of us are. And that's kind of the charm of these characters. Is Bond is not a character to be looked up to in the sense of he's a killer. And if you go back and you read Ian Fleming's novels, he's a very cold-hearted individual. He will straight up murder you if you get in his way. He's not a character to be looked at on a moral high ground. But as far as like being skilled, being, that you can admire his skill, you can admire his class, you can admire the charm in which he presents himself. These are all things that you can look at and still disagree with him on a moral level. And that's what we seem to have forgotten about characters in fiction, is that I can love Doctor Doom as a villain and like aspects of his personality and still disagree with what he does. I can understand why Magneto is the way that he is and why he has the any means necessary sort of Malcolm X kind of viewpoint when it comes to protecting his people, and still disagree with his methods. You can like aspects of a character and not condone their actions, but that's not the way that it is right now with this new generation of just like baby brain writers and readers who, like I saw Tim Seeley getting attacked because of a scene in Nightwing, and someone was saying like, oh, well, this scene made me very uncomfortable. And Tim Seeley just responded, he said, fiction is allowed to make you uncomfortable. That's, what do you what do you want? You know, like
Yeah.
this is what we do. We tell stories and we examine things from different perspectives. And if you have a reaction to it, that's good. That means you're alive. And that means that I've done my job.
Exactly. But nowadays people just want, you know, I'm in my safe space. You're violating my safe space by making me feel uncomfortable.
You didn't give me a trigger warning. It's not my job.
Oh yeah, you didn't give me a trigger warning. That's so incredibly dumb. It's so dumb. Trigger warning. No. I'm sorry, but when I'm reading a book, I don't need to like pause for a trigger warning.
It's not the writer's job to anticipate what your trauma is and to
exactly
and to kind of like soften it for you. It's your job to deal with your trauma in a healthy way, whether that's therapy or, you know, going to church or you know, just talking with family and friends, whatever you have to do to work through whatever horrible things have happened to you. You know, you should be doing that.
They're not going to do that because
no, we live in a time where everybody puts their mental illnesses in their Twitter bio.
In their bio, yeah, mental illness is celebrated nowadays. You know, oh my gosh, I have anxiety too. You know, nowadays mental illness is celebrated. So why on earth would they go and get help for their mental illness? No, instead they're going to make everybody else change for them. And we saw this with like, I don't remember, but it was like a video game. This one person, I can't remember which video game it was, but this one person had one complaint and they changed the entire thing for him. I mean, it was just so dumb and ridiculous. And it's just like, this is one person. Are you really going to, it's incredibly dumb. It's like, oh my goodness, deal with it.
At some point you have to stand by your work, stand by your art.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to
despite even if you start getting attacked, oh no, sorry you didn't like it. Let's move on. It's just ridiculous how coddled people need to be nowadays.
And I'm very empathetic to people who have trauma in their background. You know, it's like I've got childhood trauma, but I don't project it out for everybody else to, you know, like it's not everybody else's problem. It's my problem to deal with. And nobody has the responsibility to come to me and to soften the way that they're going to speak to me or the way that they're going to present a story to deal with my personal issues. That's exactly what it is. It's personal. It's for me to deal with. It's your job to entertain me, to tell a story. And if I have a problem with that story, I can stop watching it and I can walk away from it because, you know, okay, obviously I'm not in a mental place to deal with what's going on in this. You know, I have a huge problem watching, you know, anything that presents any kind of animal or child abuse in its narrative. You know, that's very hard for me to watch. And, you know, sometimes I've had to turn things off, but I don't want it changed. You know, these are important things that need to be discussed and need to be, you know, presented so that we can have those discussions. And the problem is that everybody's just trying to shut down discussion and homogenize everything and make everything just wrapped in bubble wrap and as bland as possible so that we don't offend anybody. And it's killing entertainment and it's killing the entertainment industry. And that's why they're losing money. But instead of standing up to these people on Twitter who represent such a small percentage of people, they kowtow to them. And it's ridiculous. The lunatics are running the asylum.
Absolutely.
We are definitely in an age of basically creating film for the lowest common denominator, i.e. who can be offended the most. We got to make something completely offensive proof. It makes everything as boring as possible. Certainly people have spoke out about this. I do want to say thank you very much to Stephanie from My Nerdy Home. Definitely go check out her Twitch channel. Check out her YouTube channel. She does a lot of streams. She also streams with, I think, Lethal Lightning as well. Definitely check out Aaron Sparrow's episode of Young Justice that's coming up in season 4. And I want to say thank you very much to both of you for joining me and talking about the sinking of 007 by Cary Fukunaga. Just going to ruin the franchise.
Thank you for having me. This was a really good discussion.